In 1943, along the south coast of France, a young naval officer and his companions began a series of experiments that changed forever our perception of the world we inhabit. The Navy lieutenant, Jacques-Yves Cousteau, had invented, with an engineer's help, a device he called the Aqua-Lung. It permitted human beings to breathe underwater for the first time without any connections to the world above, to glide for long periods through the sea like fish. Cousteau and his crew embarked on a modern odyssey. They became the first humans to explore the undersea world and to capture it on film. Because of them, we now understand the living sea as a wilderness filled not with monsters, but with exquisite beauty. Through the Cousteau team, we all made our first contacts with extraordinary creatures dwelling alongside us in a liquid realm. What you're about to see is an exploration into the life of the explorer himself, Captain Jacques Cousteau.
Calypso today leaves her research work to journey up the Potomac River. She leads a parade of tall ships to Washington, D.C.'s annual Riverfest. Yet, this year's pageantry marks a special event. On behalf of millions of people, Washington pays tribute to Captain Cousteau on his 75th birthday.
If you've ever seen a Cousteau film, you've journeyed aboard this ship to explore some hidden wonders of life on Earth. Today, we hope you will join us as we sail to a special destination, George Washington's home, Mount Vernon. The Calypso team has been invited to a party to celebrate their years of accomplishment and my father's 75th birthday. As we sail the Potomac, we want to share with you some of the events of my father's life. Most of what you will see has never appeared on television. Public recognition around the world first came to my father when he published this book in 1953. It sold 5 million copies and was turned into a film. For millions of people, the idea of humans gliding down through the ocean was the stuff of dreams. Until sitting in movie theaters 30 years ago, they saw these unforgettable opening scenes.
This is a motion picture studio 165 feet under the sea. These divers, wearing the compressed air Aqua-Lung, are true spacemen, swimming free as fish.
Thus opened a new era in the sea, and thus began the public renown of Jacques Cousteau as pioneer, poet, and protector of the undersea world. Camera in hand, Cousteau has explored the ocean's mysteries and mesmerizing beauty in more than 70 films. Yet the films afford only a rare glimpse into the other worlds of Jacques Cousteau, beyond the sea and behind the scenes of exploration. There is Cousteau, the administrator, who has spent 40 years struggling to raise the money to realize his dreams. Cousteau, the inventor, who has created with his teams scores of patented devices to enter and to study the sea. From the first electric sea scooters, to the first small submarines for science, to the first apparatus for filming the deep ocean abyss, and the first submerged stations, where humans could live and work for extended periods at the bottom of the sea. To document their exploits, the Cousteau team has created underwater cameras. Even in 1952, the first undersea video camera. Along the surface, Cousteau's team developed the world's largest inflatable ship and a floating buoy laboratory anchored at sea for permanent research. There is Cousteau, the museum director, who has guided marine studies for 3 decades in Monaco.
We are entering an entirely new field of understanding of the life cycle in the sea, which is...
And Cousteau, outspoken defender of the sea, founder of one of the world's largest environmental organizations.
Extremely fragile. And now that it is submitted to stress, it collapses.
And Cousteau, writer and poet, author or co-author of more than 60 books. More than anything else, this variety of worlds seems the product of an irrepressible curiosity.
I think I have accumulated in my life a fantastic amount of souvenirs. My parents were moving a lot at a time when it was difficult to move a lot.
Cousteau's father cruises the world in steam yachts as secretary to an American millionaire. In Paris, almost from infancy, young Jacques reveals a curious mind, yearns to see the world of his father's travels. He is mechanically inclined, often builds his own toys. In 1920, the Cousteau family spends a year living in this building in New York City. 10-year-old Jacques and his brother, dangled from fire escapes, play stickball in the streets. They are dispatched for the summer to a camp at Lake Harvey, Vermont, where Jacques, as punishment for mischief, is ordered to clear the lake bottom of brush each day. It is the first diving experience, and a fascination is born. At 13, he falls in love with film. By 16, he is directing homemade melodramas. Cousteau, in the dark suit, is always cast as villain. And good always triumphs over evil, awkwardly. So begins the underwater film career of Jacques Cousteau. Hoping to travel the world, Cousteau and his camera enter the French Naval Academy. Once bored in school, he turns scholar, graduates second in his class. His dream of travel comes true. At 22, he circles the world on the training ship Jeanne d'Arc. The voyage produces a Cousteau newsreel featuring the Sultan of Oman and the Cambodian dancers of Angkor Wat. He films the procession through the streets of Hanoi, another in Bali, and the geishas of Japan. In Los Angeles, the young sailors tour Hollywood, clowning before Cousteau's camera on a familiar-looking movie set. They meet Claudette Colbert and visit Pickfair, where Douglas Fairbanks offers a cigarette and a light to the young Jacques Cousteau.
The activity of filming, of course, has been my preferred activity all my life. And some people have a tendency to write their logbook, take notes in writing. I prefer to take notes in pictures.
As a young gunnery officer, Cousteau is posted to Shanghai. There, at the age of 23, he is appointed commander of the Naval Office, all the while filming the exotic world around him. When his tour of duty ends, Cousteau sets out to film and to explore the Soviet Union alone, en route home to France. He learns Russian and boards the Trans-Siberian Railroad from Vladivostok to Moscow. Then south by car to the Hindu Kush Mountains. Soviet authorities confiscate much of his film. The rest he smuggles out. Back home in France, Cousteau pursues an old dream, seeks his destiny not in the sea, but in the sky. At 25, he enrolls in the Naval Aviation School, holding a camera even as he trains. Cousteau is about to graduate when tragedy strikes. A car accident leaves him crushed, one arm paralyzed. Doctors choose to amputate, but Cousteau forbids them, then struggles for 8 months to move a single finger. His dream of flying is extinguished. Posted to the south coast of France, Cousteau begins daily therapy, swimming in the sea. He is joined by a young Navy lieutenant, Philippe Taillez, and Frédéric Dumas, a champion spearfisherman. Fashioning masks from inner tubes and snorkels from garden hoses, the three friends begin to experiment with diving. What they discover changes their lives. Their first glimpses into the sea fuel a restless drive to explore it. For Cousteau, it is a magical awakening. Cousteau is determined to film this hidden realm and soon makes his first undersea movie. The subject, Dumas, the spearfisherman. The problems are formidable. Cousteau must surface to rewind his small camera after only 30 seconds of filming. The film is made up of still photo rolls spliced together, the only film available at the time. And shooting time is limited since both star and cameraman are holding their breath. Cousteau is driven by the thought of staying longer undersea. He imagines a portable breathing device. If it works, the three friends will be able to roam the ocean freely and see things never seen before.
More than 40 years have passed since Jacques Cousteau first dreamed of a device that would allow him to stay underwater for extended periods. Since that time, of course, the crews have streamlined and they've improved the diving equipment. Now, this gear now, this is being tested for use aboard Calypso. But this remains the real key to scuba diving, the regulator that feeds compressed air to the divers in amounts that equalize the pressure within the body to the pressure of the surrounding water, automatically, regardless of depth. The appearance of regulators has varied over the years, but the mechanics remain basically the same as Cousteau's original invention. Today, there are millions of divers, and yet perhaps few are aware of how scuba diving was born. The original invention was carried out in secrecy, and the story went unreported. The news was dominated not by the conquest of the sea, but by the calamity of war.
In 1942, as Hitler's forces are poised to seize the French fleet, it is scuttled by the French themselves. Navy officer Cousteau now has no navy. He joins the resistance, continuing his diving as a cover for intelligence work. In occupied Paris that year, he meets engineer Émile Gagnon. The two work on Cousteau's idea for a breathing device. In January of 1943, the first Aqua-Lung is tested in the Marne River near Paris. Watched by a handful of friends, one of whom takes 2 snapshots, Cousteau becomes history's first scuba diver. The following summer, Taillez, Dumas, and several companions joined Cousteau along the French Riviera for ocean tests of his diving device. In the first Aqua-Lung film, Cousteau's camera records a revolutionary event, men swimming deep in the sea like marine animals. Suddenly at home in the sea, men who once speared fish turn to feeding them. Don't kill, Cousteau says. Watch them live. The team searches for sunken ships. Before this, few people had seen a shipwreck at the bottom of the sea. The divers explore like curious children, find the ship's wheel and the captain's bathtub. They come to be known as menfish. Yet for Cousteau, there is a more apt analogy. Underwater, he says, man becomes an archangel. The young man who dreamed of becoming a pilot finds he can fly in the sea. When the war ends, a new life begins for Cousteau. Briefly, Cousteau's camera is directed at military subjects. Taillez, Dumas, and Cousteau form an underwater research group within the French Navy. Their equipment consists of 3 Aqua-Lungs, masks, and fins. To promote diving and feed their families, the team demonstrates the usefulness of their equipment. They make the first film record of mines being laid underwater and help clear French harbors of hidden explosives. They recover live German torpedoes and film a Frenchman.
We were aware of dangers. We were aware of the limitations of diving, and we tried all the time to flirt with the limits. And we knew it was fairly dangerous.
In 1947, the team studies diving physiology, descending to 300 feet and beyond to understand the effects of hazards such as the bends and nitrogen narcosis. The experiments defined depth limits still followed by divers today. Then their first rendezvous with a shark. Accustomed to timid fish, Dumas approaches fearlessly, even tries to catch its tail. But suddenly, the creature charges Cousteau, who fends it off at the last moment with his camera.
We're not daredevils, and I'm not a daredevil. I hate danger. But once we have taken all the precautions, there always remains a certain dose of danger that we have to deal with.
Perhaps Cousteau's closest call comes in an inland water cave, the famed Fountain of Vaucluse in southern France. The team hopes to learn why the mysterious deep pool erupts once each year in a furious flood. Cousteau and Dumas will lead in the first penetration. They descend, unaware that the tanks on their backs hold a deadly surprise. Suddenly and mysteriously, 200 feet deep in the cave, both men are in trouble. Their bodies weak, consciousness ebbing away. Dumas passes out. Cousteau struggles desperately for the surface, dragging Dumas behind. Cousteau emerges in a daze, baffled by the strange effect. Dumas must be carried from the water, lost in a stupor. Hours later, the problem is found. A faulty air compressor has tainted their tanks with lethal carbon monoxide. They are lucky to be alive. Today, Frédéric Dumas, Philippe Taillez, and Cousteau recall the near tragedy. It was our greatest risk, Taillez says. It is extraordinary, Dumas says, that we did not all stay in that cave. I didn't see the light when I came out. Yet you appeared lucid, Jacques. I was terrorized, Cousteau says. What gave me courage was the feeling your life depended on me. That gave me a formidable courage. By 1950, the team dreams of acquiring a ship for ocean exploration. On the island of Malta, Cousteau finds a converted minesweeper now used as a ferry boat. It carries 11 cars and 400 people. Its name is Calypso.
In Homer's book, The Odyssey, the original Calypso was a beautiful maiden who kept Ulysses a captive for 7 years. This Calypso has kept my father for 35 years. She has begun as J826, a wooden minesweeper built in Seattle, christened in 1942 by a schoolgirl, leased to the British for war duty in the Mediterranean. 9 years later, in Antibes, France, she's launched again, a warrior turned explorer. The purchase of Calypso has been financed by a British philanthropist. He exacts from my father 2 promises: never to reveal his identity and never to ask for money. In the winter of 1951, an excited crew sets out on the first cruise. A fierce storm hits only 3 days later. A quick lesson about life in a small ship on the high sea. From the beginning, Calypso's adventures and her special mission evoke a spirited camaraderie on board. On leave from the Navy, my father imposes non-Navy rules: no uniform required, no distinctions of rank. Deckhands are called professor, professors are called mister, and a contest is begun for the funniest hat. Though principally a research vessel, Calypso is also a family home. Friends serve as temporary crew. Parties turn to expeditions. It is at a party in Paris where my father first met Simone Melchior, my mother, in 1936. Naturally, he was filming even the night he first saw his future wife. Their wedding a year later is a naval affair. He is an officer. She comes from 3 generations of French admirals. Soon we are a naval family. My father now involved in the war, my mother raising my younger brother Philippe and I in occupied France. Now about Calypso. Family life and ocean exploration mix. My mother is probably the first female scuba diver. My father teaches me to dive at age 7. Philippe first dives at 4. Our family's second home is the sea itself. Philippe and I are schooled in the family business. Grew up as members not only of a family, but of a pioneering team.
On an early dive near the island of Crete, old and new come face to face. A Greek sponge diver plods upright in lead boots. Cousteau's men glide horizontally, weightless and free. Calypso's lead diver, Albert Falco, decides to introduce the helmet diver to the future. The Greek has never seen such paraphernalia. At first, the sponge diver's instincts betray him. He forgets to breathe underwater. next problem, an aching ear caused by water pressure. Falco demonstrates the solution. After 30 years of walking the seafloor, the Greek sees his workplace for the first time, as fish do. Calypso's early voyages produce a wealth of facts and films, but Cousteau must struggle behind the scenes to finance the work. 3 times mortgages his home to raise money.
I knew that ships were very expensive to run, so that was my first challenge. So at the very beginning, we were obliged to borrow, Simone and I, on whatever we had. And for the first years, I managed to get some government contracts just to carry scientists on board Calypso.
Cousteau's first big contract sends ship and crew to the Persian Gulf. Geologists believe the seafloor near Abu Dhabi may hide deposits of oil. Calypso makes 400 stations to survey the bottom, using geological instruments and, for the first time, Aqua-Lung divers as oil prospectors.
And after 2 or 3 months of hard work, we did find the oil, and now, of course, the little village of nomads has turned into a big city with skyscrapers and big buildings, big hotels, and that is due to our findings.
In 1952, near a tiny rock island outside Marseille, Calypso seeks riches of another kind along the seafloor. The work is carried out using an underwater television system invented by Cousteau and crewman André Labon. From above, Professor Fernand Benoit and Cousteau direct work on a mass of old sunken pots found by a local fisherman. When the Calypso team checks out his report, they realize the magnitude of the discovery. What they find are thousands of ancient amphoras, priceless remains of a Greek argosy more than 2,000 years old. It is, at the time, the oldest vessel ever discovered. The team undertakes the first extensive archaeological dig by Aqua-Lung divers, fashioning tools as they go. They develop a suction hose system to clear away the bottom, a technique still used today. 22 centuries late, a cargo of wine jars will now arrive in Marseille. But the work, 140 feet deep, is laborious and slow. One diver, in a playful mood, finds a way to speed up the process. The team makes 10,000 dives during 3 years, recovers 8,000 amphoras and 12,000 pieces of ancient dinnerware, all transported to a Marseille museum. One archaeologist pronounces it the most important find since Pompeii. Cousteau is called the father of undersea archaeology. A small celebration is organized, a toast to voyages lost in antiquity and to future discoveries still hidden in the liquid vaults of the sea.
That little ship approaching has provided us with countless moments of entertainment and education. When she arrives here at Mount Vernon, there will be thousands of people to greet her. The Calypso is probably one of the most celebrated ships afloat. Yet, there was little glory and no glamour like this in the early days. In this country, an American writer named James Dugan introduced Cousteau's works, and soon, articles appeared in the National Geographic. Now, the readers of these articles realized that something extraordinary was afoot. A small group of seamen in France were uncovering a life of another dimension, hidden on our own planet.
For the pioneering divers of Calypso, the early 50s are a period of exuberance, devising new exploration equipment, probing the sea's greatest treasure, life. While scientists aboard carry out research, the dive team makes the first color movies of life below 100 feet. Among Cousteau's first cameramen is a 20-year-old named Louis Malle, today a renowned film director.
For somebody who wanted to become a filmmaker, it was a fantastic education. Cousteau was always a great technician and improving constantly. We had to make the under cameras ourselves because there was nothing that we could use at the time. So we made those cameras. It was called the SM1 and SM2 and SM3. They were started from the mechanism of a handheld camera, the Bell and Howell, and then we made the camera with wide angles, and it was so we were not only pioneering discovering this under the world, undersea, but also Cousteau really invented underwater photography.
Carrying flood lamps to a coral reef, the team finds something neither seen nor suspected before them. Shrouded by the sea's blue twilight since the dawn of time, an extravagance of living color, glaring hues never seen even by countless generations of fish. During thousands of dives to coral reefs, they observe not undersea jungles, but cities. For fish, a reef's crevices provide shelter, amount to a vast tract of apartment houses. Where others might hunt, the Cousteau team seeks friends. The first is a 60-pound Red Sea grouper. Curious about these strange intruders, he follows the team like a mascot, constantly interrupts their work. They name him Ulysses and make him the star of their film.
Ulysses, may I have the next world?
Ulysses is immortalized in these scenes from The Silent World. In 1956, the film wins an Oscar and the grand prize at the Cannes Film Festival. An early team member is National Geographic photographer Louis Marden, who takes the first full series of color photographs undersea. Today, he recalls the young Cousteau.
Here is a man who is like, what shall we say, like the Wright brothers. They're two of my heroes. I mean, the Wright brothers opened the air to mankind. Jacques-Yves Cousteau opened the submarine world to mankind. Here I was working with him, under him, seeing how his mind worked, which is always very original. People discuss something, how do we do this, how do we do that? He would say nothing, he would listen. Then he'd say, well, why don't we do this? It would be 180 degrees away, but the best system always.
Cousteau's boundless curiosity now leads him to ponder the sea's deep abyss, far beyond his diver's range. For help, he turns to Dr. Harold Edgerton of MIT. inventor of the strobe light. Famed for his high-speed photography, capable of freezing motion in a millionth of a second. Edgerton joins Calypso, and the ship begins an historic series of deep-water experiments. In 1956, Cousteau and Edgerton attempt to anchor above a deep valley in the bottom of the Atlantic, the Romanche Trench. They lower more than 5 miles of nylon cable and achieve the deepest anchorage of any ship in history. Edgerton has devised the special cameras to withstand the frigid, high-pressured waters at great depths. With Calypso at anchor, the camera is lowered. It is, Edgerton notes, like trying to photograph birds on a foggy night from a balloon. The camera returns with photos of a brittle star and several specks of unknown life at 24,000 feet. The first photographic proof of life at such depths. The difficulties frustrate Cousteau, who wants to see the deep with his own eyes. To do so, he must invent a new tool. It is unveiled in 1959, the diving saucer, the first small submarine for ocean exploration. It carries 2 people and cameras to 1,200 feet. Cousteau and engineer Jean Mollard have designed the vessel. Albert Falco is its first pilot. Cousteau's dream is to explore down to the edges of the continental shelf. The saucer will allow descents lasting several hours in a vehicle nearly as maneuverable as a diver. From the saucer, the first light can be cast into realms of eternal night, to look out and to see what might look back.
On va descendre vers le sud.
At 850 feet, Cousteau decides to take a sample of bottom life. From here on, he notes in the saucer logbook, everything is to be discovered. Paper-thin sponges cling to a ledge, like decorative vases in a blind world. A shark of the depths, confused by the light. Cousteau estimates it is 20 feet long. We have no idea what it is, Cousteau notes. We are probably the first men to see such a creature alive. The success of the diving saucer leads Cousteau to further dreams. He has mastered techniques to visit the undersea world. Perhaps he could live there. Now at 5 o'clock on a Sunday in June, Calypso arrives at Mount Vernon, and the festivities begin.
Today, the crew of Calypso is welcomed to Mount Vernon. Yet wherever the ship sails, she is met with warmth and affection, and frequently with honors. 2 weeks prior to the ship's arrival, Captain Cousteau was awarded the U.S. Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor at the White House.
Captain Cousteau perhaps has done more than any other individual to reveal the mysteries of the oceans that cover more than 2/3 of the surface of our planet. It is therefore likely that he will be remembered not only as a pioneer in his time, but as a dominant figure in world history.
The honors began to accumulate in the early 60s when Calypso and her crew captured the public's imagination as pathfinders entering a liquid frontier. Cousteau's portrait graced the cover of Time, and then, in the Rose Garden, he was awarded the National Geographic Gold Medal for Exploration by yet another president.
He is therefore one of the great explorers of an entirely new dimension. I can imagine his satisfaction in having opened up the ocean floor to man and to science. And I can think of no more felicitous award than this to the captain. I congratulate also your wife, the representative of France, the ambassador, Mrs. Alphonse, your country, and you and the Geographic.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
The medal reads, "To earthbound man he gave the key to the silent world." A year later, the silent world is further broached as Claude Wesley and Albert Falco become the first humans to live in the sea. Cousteau's experiment is both psychological and medical. In daily visits, doctors check for lung fatigue, increased blood pressure, and symptoms of mental stress. Tests find that the two men, submerged for a week at 33 feet, with only a tiny steel cylinder for shelter, remain alert and healthy. Cousteau calls his first manned undersea base Continental Shelf Station 1, Conshelf 1, and quickly plans Conshelf 2. In June of 1963, on a remote reef in the Red Sea, the oceanauts will descend to homes on the seafloor. Conshelf 2, the first undersea colony. As if stationed on another world, 5 men and their spaceship will remain here a month without surfacing. The experience is documented in a feature film which brings Cousteau his 3rd Oscar.
Our village on the ocean floor serves as our base of operations. For a month, we will live and work underwater as other men do on the land above.
Once again, Cousteau's irrepressible curiosity has led to invention. 2 surface ships supply the submerged hamlet with compressed air and electricity. Though encompassed by the sea, the oceanauts do not go without the essentials of human life: air conditioning, television, and French food. The main lodge, called Starfish House, sits on a coral ledge at 36 feet. But Cousteau's plan is to send 2 of his men deeper, to 76 feet, for a week. The deep oceanauts, Raymond Kienzi and André Portelatine, face a grueling challenge. From their tiny base, they will venture on daily dives as deep as 300 feet. They breathe a mixture of air and helium. The helium extends the diver's range below the safe limits of compressed air, but it plays a trick on vocal cords.
Allô, petite maison. Vous êtes bien arrivés tous les deux? Tout va bien?
Nous sommes bien arrivés. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien.
Ça va?
Ça va. Ça va? Ça va?
Outside, an inquisitive reef resident called a parrotfish. Inside, the original version. An undersea celebration. The 26th anniversary of Captain Cousteau and wife Simone, who, spending a week here, becomes the first female oceanaut. Conshelf 2 succeeds, proves that humans can endure life in the sea, which leads Cousteau to wonder, how deep can humans live? And thus, Conshelf 3. In 1965, Cousteau begins construction of a spherical chamber in which his divers will attempt to live 328 feet deep. In September, with 6 oceanauts aboard, the habitat is dropped into a forbidding realm. The team works in chilling darkness for 21 days. Partial support of National Geographic will later air a TV special about Conshelf 3, narrated by Orson Welles.
A phone call to the U.S. Navy's SEAL Lab 2 in the Pacific. Astronaut Scott Carpenter, leader of the American team, returned from the bottom, joins the conversation from the surface.
Congratulations on your very fine project.
We wish you the same success.
An American diver 200 feet down in SEAL Lab speaks in French. Labin and Philippe Cousteau speak in English. But both sides are afflicted by helium, and neither discovers until the end which language the other is using. Thus passes the first conference of the United Oceans.
The Conshelf television special garners a huge American audience. And for Cousteau in Paris, it means both opportunity and burden. The press of managing voyages, inventions, and science is complicated further. In the United States, he is called upon to create a series of TV specials by award-winning producer David Wolper.
I found him very tough. He insisted when we made the deal that we had to have 12 hours of film, and I kept telling him, but I can only sell 6. I don't think I can sell 12, Jacques. And he said, well, I can't do what I want to do in the 6 hours. I have to have 12 in order to do the ship the way I wanted it, in order to get the equipment I need to make it great. I have to have this much. And he never bent. He just drove me right to the wall, and he never bent 1 inch in that negotiation. I fortunately was able to sell the 12, and it worked out well.
In February of 1967, along the waterfront of Monaco, a remodeled, re-equipped, repainted Calypso is ready for her longest expedition. Cousteau and crew will this day embark on a 3-year voyage, documented for television. Longtime Calypso supporters Prince Rainier and Princess Grace now arrive to bid bon voyage. They bring the team a farewell gift, a bloodhound named Zoom. There is a tour of new equipment financed by the television contract, and at last, the moment of departure. So a small wooden vessel and 27 people set out, unaware they are sailing into legend.
Nearly 20 years ago, the team aboard Calypso faced a choice: continue to improve deep diving technology, or explore the life of the sea for television. Cousteau and his team chose television, realizing that it might awaken the entire world to the irreplaceable wonders of the sea. The Cousteau TV series quickly became the most popular documentary series in broadcasting history.
The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau first airs in January 1968. Audiences quickly adopt the nomadic souls of Calypso, follow their far-flung adventures, admire the easy camaraderie of captain and crew. Once a ferry boat, the little ship now carries millions on a timeless voyage of discovery. The strong response to Cousteau's televised expeditions turns the 3-year trip into a worldwide quest that still continues nearly 2 decades later. Calypso and her complement of air and watercraft logged more than 500,000 miles pursuing Earth's secrets, from dark waters at the bottom of the sea to polar ice at the bottom of the world. The images recorded by Calypso's teams are remembered by countless viewers, yet few are witness to the difficult labor of making the images. To film the speed and grace of dolphins in the Mediterranean, a special platform must be constructed. Cameraman Jacques Renoir dangles precariously while Calypso races the swift dolphins at top speed. Renoir's shots, combined with views from an underwater camera, appear in the film Sound of Dolphins. To film migrating salmon in Alaska, the team must contend with an icy torrent. The salmon provide little help, as cameraman Bernard Delmotte learns. In Africa's Lake Tanganyika, Cousteau hopes to film the watery life of the hippo. A makeshift raft is rigged for the camera. The approach is cautious when filming a 7,000-pound creature with a violent temper. The hippo, it seems, has little interest in a film career. Surveying the damage, Philippe Cousteau finds an expensive camera shattered and the much hoped-for film now worthless. The problem calls for ingenuity. From Monaco, a life-size plastic hippo arrives. Diver Yves Cousteau is assigned the rear deck. Delmotte will be forward. Cousteau appoints Delmotte captain of the hippopotamus. The goal is to infiltrate the herd and to film from the open nose of the model. It is surely history's first Trojan hippo. At first, the herd shows little interest. Then, the model catches the attention of a curious bull. It is the mating season. The divers exit, their camera unused, but their dignity preserved. So it goes, filming the real world.
He wasn't used to television in the beginning, but he adapted very fast to what we wanted. He understood, he changed his own technique in certain ways so that it would adapt to American television and television around the world.
From the Soviet Union to South America to Japan, the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau becomes a television hit. Shown in more than 100 countries, it introduces an audience of hundreds of millions to the drama and wonder of the sea.
選ばれた者たちが最後の試練に突進するとき、私たちはこの素晴らしい航海者たちに敬意を表さずにはいられません。
Wir haben in der Antarktis nur sehr wenige große Wale gesehen. Aber immer noch leben ganze Herden von Killerwalen. Die enge Familiengemeinschaft besteht aus mehreren Weibchen.
Descubrieron un banco de 40 o 50 calamares flecha de mar a los lados del Calipso. Es la primera vez que hemos visto calamares desde que entramos a las aguas de la costa de California.
Yet for the crew, the films seen around the world often involve dangers that go unseen. Storm-swollen seas can make life difficult and hazardous.
Listen to me closely.
And wildlife can be unpredictable, as seen in the film Sharks, narrated by Rod Serling.
The sharks are getting too aggressive. Bring up the cages. We are finished.
Off the Mexican coast, a diver inadvertently corners a 3-ton elephant seal to film a close-up. The result? Another camera to repair. The work demands both daring and quick reflexes, as Philippe finds. Emerging like an apparition from Lake Titicaca in the Andes, diver Jean-Claire Rion faces a common risk, the volatile suspicions of remote people. For the Imragan tribe of Mauritania, Rion's wetsuit is a thing of surpassing wonder. The camera, a bafflement. No Imragan has ever seen a man with blonde hair and a dolphin's body. The women find this worrisome. The men, hilarious. Sometimes it seems even the creatures of the sea find the arrival of the Cousteau team a tiresome bother. No, thank you. We've had enough. Ignoring the elephant seal practice called sand flipping, Kienzi tries to record a heartbeat.
Yet the problems are balanced by the moments of gentleness. A humpback whale withdraws a flipper, the diver escapes harm. A peaceful manatee weighing 2 tons feeds like an infant from a diver's hands. A playful sea otter, undaunted by the curious black and yellow stranger, first examines the creature, then makes away with the creature's abalone. Philippe, meanwhile, offers a side dish to an imperturbable friend. And thus passes a relaxing afternoon at sea. Sometimes the curiosity is mutual, and then the months of difficulty seem a small price to pay for a few moments of magic.
Scientists tell us that marine life is tragically vulnerable to the ravages of human civilization. I mean, we may be destroying what's down there before we even know what's down there. The changes below the ocean surface, they're beyond our view. I mean, the invisible currents that disperse fish eggs and larvae are now carrying human contaminants throughout the sea. One of the first to witness this deterioration was Jacques Cousteau. And that realization changed his life and his work. The ocean's most famous explorer became its most famous defender.
The scenes were burned in our memories. The first Aqua-Lung divers, we had glided through a Mediterranean teeming with fish. It was the exuberance of life here that drew us to explore farther, deeper. Three decades later, the Cousteau team returns to the same waters off the south coast of France. Only a ghostly desert remains. The shoals of damselfish, the groupers, the dorados, have vanished. Coastal development, fishing, pollution have extinguished the life where diving was born.
It is very abruptly in 1958 that I got aware of the damage done by human activities. I don't even like to use the word pollution because it's much more complicated than that, on the fish population in the Mediterranean. And for that reason, I suddenly thought we had to do something about it.
Where once the Calypso team probed the nature of the sea, we now must diagnose its health. Sadly, we find places in the Mediterranean where the water itself is a diving hazard. My my father founds a non-profit organization to work for the protection of the ocean. And the Cousteau Society initiates a series of water quality surveys from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean, Amazon, Mississippi. As his teams analyze water quality, my father sets out on a personal mission. It had begun with Charles de Gaulle in 1958. Now he travels the world to convince its leaders to save the sea. At the same time, he lobbies the public.
In the past 20 years, life in the ocean...
The TV clip announces a series of Cousteau educational events in major US cities.
The future of the sea now depends on us all. This is Jacques Cousteau inviting you to join me and my son Philippe for a day of learning and involvement.
Tens of thousands turn out to hear my father and to question.
What's it like down there? Okay. It's fantastic.
There are speeches, films, debates about ocean problems. But for my father, the highlight of each event is a question and answer session for children.
How many fish there are in the ocean? That's too much. Why do I get along with children so well? Certainly because they have not been obscured by experience. Adults have no more spontaneity generally, and children just run in the country. They jump around, they pick up flowers, they throw ink pots at walls. It's wonderful.
A father and grandfather,
you just wanted to give me a flower?
He knows the joys of children.
Thank you.
And the heartaches. It is as father he now suffers his greatest setback. Since boyhood, my brother Philippe has been at his father's side, diver, cameraman, friend. A filmmaker too, Philippe began producing his own television series to explore the quality of life on Earth. He filmed from an amphibious plane he called Calypso 2. Philippe shared his father's dreams intimately, cherished the sea, photography, and like his father long before, the dream of flying. In 1979, not yet 40, Philippe died in the plane he loved. The loss was incomprehensible and crushing. Even the sea, whose wonders they had marveled at side by side, now held not comfort, but memories. For a time, my father considered giving up. Yet, the work was too vital. Soon, he dedicated himself to recording the awesome spectacle of life in the sea, so quickly vanishing, for children and all generations to come. His every project now is aimed at preserving the living jewels of Earth, the beauty and the miracles that give joy to life, to pass on this legacy to future generations with the least possible deterioration. Among those who support the Cousteau Society and the goal of protecting the quality of life is our friend and fellow diver, John Denver.
The opportunity of actually meeting Captain Cousteau and boarding the Calypso and spending a few days with him was just an incredibly exciting event for me. And I'm sure that I'll never forget that. And then to meet him is like wandering around here today. It's hard. He is someone that is so much bigger than life in many ways that I constantly catch myself stepping back and just sort of looking at him, and you can't believe that you're actually able to spend time with him.
Though few can board the ship like John, some 200,000 people now support Calypso's work.
And the Cousteau Society, aside from being a gathering place for people who are concerned, is also supporting your work, which is educating us all and teaching us how it must be if we're to survive.
It will allow us to increase the educational activity for colleges, schools, etc., like film strips. We are going to enter that activity very much, and also organize meetings and educational trips.
And I hope you'll continue doing your television programs, which are so informative for the general public. That's
sure.
What a fabulous day.
While some 2,000 people celebrate nearby, Captain Cousteau and Jean-Michel take a moment to explore George Washington's home with representatives of Mount Vernon.
And as we come in, this is a model of the Bastille. I'm sure you recognize it. Let's walk to the key. This is one of the few items that's never left Mount Vernon. This is an original key to the main door of the Bastille.
And the piazza out here was used a great deal, too, for tea and entertainment.
Today, Mount Vernon. Tomorrow, Bermuda. The next day, who knows? He's in perpetual motion, like the sea he loves.
It is 7 a.m. at Orly Airport outside Paris. Cousteau arrives for his regular flight to Nice. It is the beginning of a week in which a film crew will follow Cousteau to record his life away from expeditions. Nearly every day begins or ends or both in an airport. A keen reader, Cousteau uses his time in the air to keep abreast of science, politics, technology, tearing out articles to pass on to his staff. In Nice, he rushes to a helicopter for the short flight east to Monaco. About once a week, he spends time at the Oceanographic Museum of Monaco, founded by Prince Albert. Cousteau has been director since 1957. This day, Jean-Michel is in his office with a new diving tank system for Calypso's team. Longtime associates Jean-Charles Roux and Captain Jean Alina have designed tanks with the same compressed air capacity as those aboard Calypso, yet they are smaller and half as heavy. They are part of a complete redesign of Cousteau equipment for a round-the-world voyage only 3 months away. Though he travels constantly, Monaco is Cousteau's home on land. His only car is here. He and Simone have lived in the apartment house in the center of the screen nearly 20 years. Yet neither is here often. Camera shy, adamant about remaining behind the scenes, Simone has spent more time aboard Calypso than her husband or sons. Telephone calls are incessant from crew, staff, press, strangers.
C'est la seule raison pour laquelle je me refuse à jouer ce jeu-là.
The next day, he returns to Paris, where he keeps a 3-room apartment on a quiet, dead-end street. The phone is ringing when he arrives.
Ah oui. Ah oui, mais
a question from his film editor.
On pourrait peut-être changer... Attendez, je crois qu'il faut que je vienne. Hein? Oui, je descends.
To supervise the final production of his many films, Cousteau has outfitted an editing room directly below his own flat. Catherine Mabila is one of 2 chief editors who, working with producers, writers, composers, and assistants, turn raw Cousteau footage into finished films at editing rooms in Paris, New York, and Los Angeles. 6 doors down from his apartment, a design team works under his supervision on the project now paramount in his life, his new turbosail windship. For 5 years, Cousteau and his team have experimented on a revolutionary wind propulsion system for ships. Nearly pollution-free, with computerized automatic controls, the system can reduce energy consumption 30 to 40% on average, using columns called turbosails with aerodynamics similar to airplane wings. The real thing approaches completion in La Rochelle, France. Each week, Cousteau flies here to inspect, advise, decide. In only 2 months, the ship will set out on a transatlantic test with Cousteau at the helm. Our idea will transform world shipping, he says. Another flight home to Paris with Alina. Cousteau hates to waste time, uses planes as offices. His Paris flat is his refuge. Here he occasionally seals off the world for an hour, fueling himself with the inspirations of music and poetry. Trained as a classical pianist, he has a vast library of music. He sits at a piano infrequently these days, but occasionally picks up his accordion or a new electronic keyboard. Cousteau keeps no car in Paris, prefers taking the metro on his endless round of meetings with scientists, bankers, publishers, politicians, and potential financial supporters. His office near the Arc de Triomphe is one of 4 where Cousteau directs work on environmental issues and education. Cousteau's non-profit operation spans Europe, America, and Calypso at sea, all linked by telephone, telefax, and telex. The telex from his New York office leads to a flight to Boston, where another project requires decisions.
The Ocean Center.
Plans for Cousteau Ocean Centers in Norfolk and elsewhere are inspected in the offices of a Boston architectural firm.
10 to 20 feet.
The public centers will educate visitors about the undersea world. The project is supervised by Jean-Michel, a trained architect. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology is next. Cousteau has been asked to lecture about his windship system. A kiss to the hostess, and then a surprise prepared by students.
Well, he's the famous frogman that you all know, with his black wetsuit. He's ready to go. He's got a mini sub and he don't care that he don't ever come up for air, 'cause he's Jacques Cousteau. How low can you go? From sea to shining sea. He checks them out for you and me. From sea to shining sea. He checks them out for you and me. He loves to say, scuba doo-ba, scuba doo-ba, scuba doo-ba.
Once Cousteau lectured frequently. Today, there is little time. Yet he relishes discussing his new windship. Shows a film of the test vessel he sailed across the Atlantic in 1983. The turbosail was lost in a storm, but the test proved its effectiveness.
The efficiency of the rotating cylinder.
Next, a flight to Florida. With 33-year veteran Albert Falco, now captain of Calypso, Cousteau inspects rehabilitation work on his vessel at a St. Augustine shipyard. Cousteau has lost count of the times Calypso has been repaired, remodeled, and even nearly rebuilt at dockyards the world over. He and Jean-Michel now prepare the ship for her 53rd mission, a 5-year round-the-world journey to rediscover the planet. And so Cousteau faces the future, ever curious, optimistic, camera in hand.
Now I'm absorbed by the finishing and testing my new ship. I'm dreaming also of finding the funds to make a Calypso 2 that will be even more adequate for our research than Calypso 1. But that's a dream for the moment. I'm involved in other projects for writing. I would like once at least to compose the music of one of my films. I would love that. I want to go to New Zealand because I've never been there. To New Guinea, I've not been there either. I want to go to North Pole. I went to the Antarctic. I've never been to the North Pole. Many such projects. And I think I will do all that.
I would like to welcome you on behalf, first of all, of the Turner Broadcasting System, which is responsible for organizing this event. And it is a great privilege for me to introduce to you the chairman of the board and the president of Turner Broadcasting, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ted Turner.
God bless you, Captain Cousteau. He's been a great inspiration to me. Some of the things that I was wrestling with about the environment, about population issues, about the arms race and the huge nuclear arsenals that have galvanized my thinking. I mean, we live on one very small, fragile planet, and we had better learn to live in peace and harmony and brotherhood, or we're going to blow the whole place up or destroy it with chemical and other pollution, and we damn well better not do it.
It has been a great privilege for me over the last few years to get to know not only Captain Cousteau, but his son, Jean-Michel. Now, you know, millions of people dream of maybe spending a few days on board the Calypso. Jean-Michel grew up on it. He's the founding director and executive vice president of the Cousteau Society. Ladies and gentlemen, Jean-Michel Cousteau.
I would like to introduce the people who keep the legend alive. Jacques and I, my father and I, we can't do it, just the two of us. Those who work day and night in uncomfortable parts of the world, who endure heat and mosquitoes, ice, loneliness, and the cramped quarters of a little wooden ship. Their names are not always known, but their accomplishments are celebrated around the world, and without them we wouldn't be here today. The crew of Calypso. I would like to introduce the crew member who has spent more time aboard Calypso than any one of us. She's the permanent and original source of Calypso's spirit. The crew has long called her La Bergère, the shepherdess, because she takes care of them, keeps them healthy, well-fed, and out of trouble in ports around the world. I'd like to add to this that very often I wonder if the real captain behind the scene is not La Bergère, my mother. To my boss, my father, my friend. You are care, love, persistence, courage, tomorrow's heritage. One earth, one water, one people, hope. I and all of us here today, together with millions of people throughout the world, we love you.
What we intend to do in the coming years, let's not say the second 75 years, because that's not enough. I hope that the spirit of the society will live much longer than that. And what I have in mind is more utopian than anything else. But I have made a decision. For the next years that I will live, I will make all my efforts to implement the most utopian project I've ever designed. I would like to see 1% of the military budgets, 1%, dedicated to a vast exchange of children. Imagine a world where all the children for 7 to 8, for example, would have to spend a year on the other side of the fence. It would be, from the educational standpoint, of course, a great opening to their minds, but it also would be a formidable barrier against war. And it is because of the hope that I have in the future of mankind that I want to join forces and forge a better world, Ted? A better world for future generations. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Commandant. God bless you.
Two days after his birthday celebration, Cousteau rejoins his new turbo sail vessel, now on its maiden voyage across the Atlantic. His thoughts turn from past once again to future.
Those first 75 years, I spent them amazed by nature, bedazzled by the exuberance of life, but worried by its fragility. Now, for the next 75 years and beyond, the spirit that inspired me must live on. And it is you, Jean-Michel, who will carry further the flame of my faith.
What one man can do is dream. What one man can do is love. What one man can do is change the world and make it new again. And here you see what one man can do. As shaded as his eyes might be, that's how bright his mind is. That's how strong his love for you and me. A friend to all the universe, grandfather of the future, and everything that I would like to be. What one man can do is dream. What one man can do is love. What one man can do is change the world and make it young again. And here you see what one man can do. What one man can do is dream. What one man can do is love. What one man can do is change the world and make it work again. And here you see what one man